So welcome to my YouTube channel. That's what we call the good life. Today I'm going to take you for a tour around my home garden. I'm going to give you a few tips on some of the things that I'm doing and a little bit of a reflection on the year that we've just had. Now I know it's not the end of the year and it's only September, but I always find September a very reflective month. You know, with autumn just starting and Christmas on the way, and we're already thinking of some new things that we can be planting next year. So if we move on to the tomatoes, as you can see, they all look a little bit bare because I've picked quite a lot, but I have still got some more that are ripening on here. Now I know that a lot of people don't like to leave their tomatoes on the plant, and it does all depend where you are in the country or indeed the world, but I typically leave mine on for as long as I dare, because I prefer mine to ripen on the plant. That being said, sometimes the time comes or they drop on the ground or you break one off accidentally and you have to ripen them, you know, maybe in your shed, in your greenhouse or on a windowsill. You know, it's all perfectly okay, but me, out of preference, I try and pick them all off. One thing I am finding is some of them are getting quite loose, and as you can see, I've had a few drop on the floor. So even if they're not completely ripe, some of them are coming off much easier than I would expect them to, even if they're not completely ripe. I'm going to be making some passata, so I'm going to be taking plenty off today and sharing some with my brother-in-law who's coming around later. When you're doing something like a passata or a chutney or lots of things, it actually doesn't matter if they're not all completely ripe. I've actually put some green tomatoes into a passata before, and people get too het up about things like that, so they don't have to be perfect. And split ones, as long as they've not gone mouldy or manky, and that one's probably just about okay, it's okay if they're split. They won't keep very long if they're split, but to put them in a passata or to eat them straight away is perfectly okay. So as you can see, mine look a little bit bare because below all the completed trusses of fruit I take the leaves off. I do that because one, it stops them from getting disease, and two, it helps them ripen a little bit quicker as well. You also sometimes get little marks on them as well, and again, I honestly don't worry about it. I just pick them and I cook them or I eat them, and especially if you're cooking them, you don't really see all the little marks anyway. I've got some peppers down here. I will pick the rest of those later. As you can see, it's a little bit windy, so I'm going to get them off today. For some reason, they haven't grown very big, but I seem to be getting some quite large peppers on there. I do need to take some advice on getting peppers to grow a bit longer and a bit more prolifically. So it's definitely not something I'm very good at. As we move over, I've got my Aubergine plants here, which are doing really, really well. They were definitely a lot slower to get going, and I wondered whether they were ever going to come to fruition. But I picked about, oh gosh, I think it was about 6 or 8 off the other day, and I've got some more smaller ones coming along really nicely. Actually, quite a lot. I've got a lovely, nice, really quite a couple of large ones in there. I think I've mentioned before that I buy grafted plants. They are a little bit dearer, but they are well worth the cost. They really are. And I've got some chard in as well, so I had some extra chard plants, so I basically scattered them all around my home garden, and I think most of them took, so I've definitely got plenty of chard to keep me through the winter and into the spring. I just wanted to say that not everything works, not everything succeeds. I have failures just like everybody else, and this year has been a particular challenge, but overall most things have turned out okay. Not perfectly, I might add. Some things I've had disasters too, like my peppers still aren't that great, but I've had some really good things, and my radishes bolted because I didn't keep on top of them, so I had to pull them up. I've had plenty of herbs. All the things in my raised bed are doing really well. I have got one that's bolted there, but I'll just pull that out later. Let's move over to the red patch here. So I've got a few things started off, which I started off a few weeks ago. It actually looks like the snails might have had a little bit of a munch on some of them, unfortunately. But I've got some peas, I've got some radishes, some turnips, and a little bit of curly leaf lettuce, which are doing quite well, albeit I've definitely lost a few to something or other, probably a slug or a snail. And that's one thing I would say, definitely worth keeping on top of the slugs and snails this time of year. Whatever your choice method of keeping your slug numbers down, we all get really tempted to keep slug numbers down. at the beginning of the year when we start planting things and we all panic, and actually learning from my own mistakes, doing it then is too late because you've already got loads and loads of slugs in your garden. So if you're going to start reducing the slug population down, it's best to be doing it all the time, you know, whatever your chosen method is, whether it's beer traps, whether it's pellets, whether it's just removing them, and whether it's using nematodes. It's best to think about these things way ahead of when we're actually really going to need it, and then it'll be a lot easier on you when you do it. Now, because the temperatures are starting to drop now, I'm keeping my greenhouse closed sometimes all the time, and only opening it up on warmer days because I want it to stay warm in there, because I've still got a few things that are coming along in here, so I want to protect them. It's definitely a lot more alive than it was this time last year. Now, I've got my Cape gooseberries in here, which I must admit seem more plant rather than actual Cape gooseberries, but I'm going to try and overwinter them and see what happens. I've got a few tomatoes finishing off in here as well, so I've got a few more of those that I can pick off. My biggest surprise is my cucumbers. So I planted these, oh gosh, way back early in the year, at the same time I did my squashes and my courgettes. So it's probably about April time, I can't exactly remember. They're only 3 plants, and they're a Nimrod variety, which is a small lunchbox. And even though they look quite shabby, that we've got all these little tatty leaves, because these are the original leaves growing up, I've got all this new growth that's coming off the end. And I've got loads of little ones forming. So if you have a look here, it's a particular clump. And I've just had cucumber after cucumber after cucumber, and I honestly thought the other day when I picked quite a few off, I thought, oh, do you know what, I don't think this, how on earth could they produce any more? The little plants are here, they look nearly dead, but they've just shot all around. But I've got loads more coming, so I'm going to keep on watering and keep on enjoying it, and I'm not going to complain at all. I'm just going to enjoy it, and I'm sure the people that I'm sharing it with are going to enjoy that too. So I broke off a great big truss of tomatoes the other day. They were all green, so I just laid them out, and look, just in my greenhouse, most of them have all ripened up. So yeah, I was cutting some of the leaves off, accidentally went and cut the wrong one, didn't I? Little bit of cursing that went on, and I thought, you know what, I'll just lay it in the greenhouse and see what happens, and nearly all of them have ripened. So I've got a few things started off, which again only started off a few weeks ago. I've got some mixed salad, some mustard, ruby streaks, I've got some pak choy, some curly leaf kale, and some kale Nero. So I will need to pop these on at some point, and I mustn't leave them too long, otherwise they'll ruin. But I will get those potted on soon. I've also got a couple of bits over here. I'll probably, if I was watching my videos, how long have I had my spring onions in that box? They really do need to go out soon. Now I've got a video coming out really soon of what to plant and sow in October. So if you've not already subscribed to my channel, it'd be really awesome if you could, because you'll get lots of hints and tips. And obviously my next video coming out will be what to plant and sow in October. If you want to know what to plant and sow now, and then you can watch my video, which is up on the screen and one in the description.